Sometimes, exploring means trying to wrap your head around what could be an incredible find. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma, and what I've seen on Eagle Mountain in northern Vermont is big, both physically and in terms of its potential impacts on history and culture. The remains of the past are often hidden in plain sight, all around us. We don't see them. Our minds tend to disregard the unusual, and cultural blindness renders much invisible. That said, it's kind of amazing something this huge has remained unseen for so long. I had to seriously consider whether what I was seeing was only in my imagination, an example of pareidolia, our mind's tendency to impose forms on nature, like seeing shapes in clouds. Because none of this megalithic work you're about to see is supposed to be here. It should not exist. My rational mind even demanded a special extra trip back to the mountain to try to unconvince myself the stonework was real. That didn't work. My thanks again to Ed Lalonde, who not only suggested I check out Eagle Mountain in the first place, he also suggested I go back to check out an older trail once I'd started to find the bigger things. I've previously proposed the presence in the Champlain Valley of possible large-scale Great Serpent work on ridges and ledges near Lake Champlain, as seen at Raven Ridge. Niquette Bay, Arms Forest, and Lone Rock Point. The work seems to scale according to the size of the landscape feature involved. So, what happens when we scale them up to the size of a small mountain? Like Eagle Mountain? Whoa. It's still a lot to wrap one's brain around. Taken me a while to put this presentation together. Some of that was time spent on research and background, illustrations, and writing. But some was born out of a certain amount of trepidation. Do I really want to do this? Yes. Yes, I do. I'll lay out my case and share what I'm seeing. If you're open to it, you may see it too. If you're not, well, nothing I show you will change that. Can't make folks see what they don't want to. And not everyone will be able to accept the possibility of finding ancient megalithic work in northwest Vermont. I had no idea I'd find work like this. I headed into our Vermont state, city, and town parks, hoping to find some evidence of Native American ceremonial stone landscape work. Stone prayers, stone rows, chambers, stone piles, cairns, and the like. And I have, but I've also found much more. I might not have found anything if I hadn't gotten lost a couple of times. My apologies for accidentally going off trail when I did. So, what's the big deal? Why is Eagle Mountain in Milton, Vermont such an experience? Based upon my observations, investigation, and research, this entire small mountain and its surrounding landscape appear to have been altered and shaped by human hands, creating a terraced landscape with effigy features from the shoreline to the summit, giving it an appearance akin to a stepped pyramid oriented to the northwest, with sweeping sides, armored like the sides of the Great Serpent. Figuring out when this is from and what it means could change our views of the ancient peoples of Northeast North America. There are some interesting stone rows at Eagle Mountain. There were small farms here in the past, and some of the stone walls look to be later construction. This stone row on the northeastern side of the mountain, however, presents several possible effigy forms. It also appears to be built in part over the remains of old, possible large-scale Great Serpent stonework. It could be Native American work. There are signs this is an effigy row. The serpentine way this stone row winds up and over these small ridges. The rounded, more organic forms of construction, as opposed to the more even courses of colonial stonemasons. The way it's often built on and incorporates exposed bedrock. The periodic large assemblages along its length, and at its end incorporating larger stones, suggesting serpent heads. There are a few places where this stone row sort of overlaps itself. Here, two radial designs, possibly serpent heads, meet. This section ends atop a ledge. The stone row picks up again a short ways on and continues over to the next major ridge. This stone row on the south side is more degraded, but still appears to feature possible effigy work. I saw tumbled down hints of large-scale serpent work on my way to the summit, but nothing definitive. There were 5 stone piles on the summit. This may yet be a sacred space. I tried to tread carefully. You can see more pictures and video of all these features in my Facebook group, Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England. The likely effigy rows and these stone piles, as ceremonial stone landscape elements, speak to the possibility this small mountain was a sacred space for Native Americans in the distant past. The many northern white cedars on the bluffs also add to that likelihood, as the cedar was also considered sacred by indigenous North Americans. The entire top of the mountain appears to be oriented to the northwest. I could see possible summer solstice sunset and equinox sunset alignments and other possibilities. Couldn't study alignments for long, as I heard the awkward, too loud first date conversation of a couple coming up the trail, and knew I had to politely move on. I headed off the summit on what I thought was a trail, and found this fascinating feature as I descended. Looking off to the north, the mountainside sloped off and down in a way that struck me as deliberate, kind of smoothed, even wavy. My way leading down grew much more challenging, and I realized I'd lost the actual trail. Looking back up at the summit, I was stunned to see possible large-scale Great Serpent stonework towering above me. Same styles and patterns I've seen at other sites. Boulders positioned as wings and fins of the Great Serpent. These boulders are perched in place. I knew I was going to have to take a look at the LiDAR when I got home. The top of the mountain is curiously shaped. I made my way south around the summit and found some amazing things. The summit appeared to be worked into tiers or terraces, the rock surfaces given a reptilian appearance. Coming around the southwest of the summit, the slope seemed worked and added to give it a serpentine appearance. I found a stone feather or fin on the southwest corner. There were curiously shaped stones and perched boulders along this first major tier or terrace down from the summit above. I drew closer to the ledge to look at the details. This is where it began to feel like I'd stumbled onto something big. The ridge around us, shaped into possible Great Serpent stonework, on a larger scale than I'd seen before. These boulders are deliberately perched here, almost like the gills or armor of the Great Serpent. Now, big as these stones are, what I didn't know at this time was that I would find stones of similar design to this in larger and larger form down on each terrace on this corner of the mountain. This corner looks very interesting on the LiDAR. There were more interesting features as I made my way down the slope towards the trail. There was a small balcony-like space, with sculpted wings and other forms along the top. I found the trail and followed it down and out towards an overlook they call Hoyt's Lookout, in honor of John and Peggy Hoyt, who donated almost half the land here. It's a pretty sweet view of Lake Champlain. The small islands out there are, from left to right, Lower Fish Bladder, Upper Fish Bladder, and Savage Island. We see South Hero behind them. Turning around, I looked back up towards the summit, marveling at how tiered and terraced it appeared. All along here, there are fin and wing stones perched in place. A check just over the edge of the lookout showed that the next tier down wasn't that far below. And my tipster Ed had told me I should really see what the cliffs look like, and told me to look for an old trail west of the lookout. West meant down. Near the lookout, I thought I saw the old trail below and headed down. What I thought was the old trail, however, didn't last, and I had to again look around to find my way. And that's when I saw that the cliffs again had actually been worked. The possible Great Serpent stonework, here even larger than above, megalithic even. We see again the repetition of the aquatic armor represented by boulders perched in place, nearly perpendicular to the cliff face. These stones are huge. They towered over me, maybe 16 feet high. The next terrace down, even larger. I was shaking my head as I drew close. Would anyone else believe what I was seeing? I wasn't sure. I'm still not. But that's up to you, really. This boulder is certainly perched here. And this protrusion looks a lot like a nose over a frowning crack for a possible mouth. I don't like to get into my videos myself, but I had to touch it to show you the scale. Further back, the way this ledge was worked blew my mind. There could be a geological explanation for this sort of cracking occurring naturally. Geologists say when the Champlain Thrust Fault was formed, some portions of rock were pushed faster than others, and this caused fractures in the rock approximately perpendicular to the line of the fault. So fractures such as these may have been responsible for forming these lines of cliffs. These front four in a row are only 3 separate pieces when we look at it closely. These are over 20 feet tall. These middle two still seem to be part of the bedrock ledge, with a line pecked out. And the outer 2 pillars seem broken off and perched. Even at a distance, this ridgeside looks remarkable. Making my way across the tier or terrace, I ran into a whisker. Possible large-scale Great Serpent stonework on a grand scale. Boulders mounted on bedrock, the bumps and giant points of these possible whiskers. These points are impressive when we get really close. I believe these show signs of human handiwork. You can see what appears to be even finer work. The next tier or terrace down was a steep drop. I made my way down and finally found the old trail Ed had mentioned. I was right on top of the big cliff on the west side of Eagle, near a sharp-cut ravine down. I was near the Champlain thrust fault, as shale started appearing under my feet here and there. And looking back at the mountain, I laughed. More worked ridges on an even larger scale. Really? Down here, this is so close to natural work, I'm not sure this would have caught my eye if I hadn't seen the stuff above. Having seen the rest, this too becomes convincing to me. Much of what they seem to do is break off a piece of ledge and then turn it, like a gill or armor, or lay it down and perch it like a fin. And now, these are 25 to 30 feet tall, even bigger than above. Again, huge boulders seemed broken off from the ridge-side bedrock and turned almost perpendicular to the ledge, perched in place, or laid down and propped and perched in place to look like a fin. Let the sun shine in. I came back a couple of days later to see this stuff again, just to be sure it was really here. It was. There's more I can show you at Eagle Mountain, if you're seeing what I'm seeing, even from just these first trips. As I've said, the possible Great Serpent stonework features are reproduced on a grand scale here. There's much more footage and many more features to share. I felt somehow much in tune with this place on this sunny day. It showed me a great spot near Cliff's Edge to take in the turkey vulture's aerial display. A small stone nearby proclaimed in memoriam that one who'd loved this place was in turn loved. After, Ed said I'd found the real lookout. It's been hard for me to put this presentation together. I knew it would be as I walked around and saw this stuff. I didn't ask to see this possible large-scale Great Serpent stonework, or expect to, or hope to. I'm open to it, obviously, but I'm also well aware some will find this all ridiculous and delusional. So be it. Those who can see will see it. Those who cannot see will not. There is nothing I can do to change that. All I can do is show you what I see. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma. Thank you for experiencing Eagle Mountain with me. What an experience.